The following is me, Sarah Neela Elkins, reading chapters 5 and 6 of Book of CoL, The Ember Child, live on April 5th, 2024. Here's my little buddy, my little reference buddy. I need to name him. Let's get started. Okay, so today I will be reading Book of CoL, The Ember Child, chapters 5 and 6. And they are longer. There is going to be some strong language here in chapter 5. And violence. Chapter 5 is Thunderskull's introduction. But yeah, this is, I estimate it's going to take me about 40 minutes to read. Okay. Let's go. The Ember Child, Chapter 5. While the class system is by no means perfect, it has been a valuable tool to distinguish between the ability levels regarding transformations across the CoL population. The majority of CoLs can only affect the minor changes to their physical makeups, while there are a select few who seem to have few upper limits. Basic CoL classes can be broken down from most common to least common as D, C, B, A, S. Our first study had 39 volunteers. 15 of them were Class D, 10 were Class C, 7 were Class B, 5 were Class A, and only 2 were Class S. As of the subsequent studies, no other Class S CoLs have volunteered, making our data on them extremely limited. Excerpts from the Book of CoL, 2nd edition, Chapter 2, The Class System. The new bed sheets are simple lavender-colored cotton with a pretty low thread count that I don't mind. I wash them in the building's laundry room, which seems well maintained, albeit not very busy. My comforter and other blankets are still a bit small for the bed, but they'll work for now. I'm sure it'll be comfortable enough for me to wake well-rested and on time. I'm also sure someone's having a very loud party in the unit above mine, and that has been going on since 2 hours before sunset. It is currently 2 in the morning. I really hoped the noise would die down by now, but if anything, it's gotten louder. I don't bother changing out of my pajamas, but I do slip on my house shoes, grab my key card and my ID, which I slip into my pants pocket before leaving my unit. Eterna pokes her head out of the door just as I'm starting down the stairs. She's in her basic form as well as pajamas. "Oh, no, Paige," she whispers loud enough to be heard over the bass music that's vibrating the building. I would have just temporarily turned off my ears by using my powers if I thought that would help. I can feel the music with my skin and bones. It is very fucking loud. "He does this sometimes, just ignore it," Eterna pleads with me as I continue down the hallway. "I need to get up early tomorrow," I say. "I've got a meeting. It's 2 in the morning. They've been partying for 8 hours. I'm going to ask them to turn it down." "You can't," she says as I reach the stairs. "Please, don't mess with Thunderskull, Paige. It's not worth it." "You can stay here," I say. "I really need to get some sleep." Sure, I could just blank out my fatigue again, but I'd rather not do that if I can avoid it. I'd be awake and alert, but actual sleep is always better. Really helps someone center themselves. I start up the stairs to the 4th floor with Eterna on my heels. I strengthen my body as I go, just in case I run into trouble. As I turn to go up the next flight, I see she's paused to shift. Her pajamas stretch a bit as she grows taller, though not quite as tall as when I first met her. Her skin becomes deep red and her ears pointed as a pair of black horns sprout from her short curly hair. I don't stop long enough to see her complete the transformation. I don't have time to waste. I really need to get some sleep. Eterna catches up to me after I've exited the stairs onto the 4th floor. The music is louder as we go down the hall. Eterna follows me nervously. People linger ahead of us with disposable plastic cups in hand. I can smell cheap beer, pot, and sweat. Most people I see are either in basic form or not CoLs at all. I ignore them and their stares as I approach the apartment that's the source of the racket. The door is propped open with a skull-shaped cement lawn ornament. Eterna pleads with me one more time before I enter the party. There are more people in the apartment than I think live in the entire apartment complex. I wonder how many people this Thunderskull buzzed in. No wonder there's been people sneaking in to cause problems. I look around the crowd. Basic-looking people rub elbows with CoLs who range from barely shifted to high elf and demon looks. I see a Minotaur that doesn't look like the lawyer I met yesterday. I wonder what Ivar would have to say about this party. It very much goes against the lease. In the back of the living area, near the large speakers and sound system, stands a person wearing steel armor. Their head is an exposed skull with horns. They also have a red plastic cup full of beer in hand and sip from it while laughing and shouting to the people near them. Oh, this is bonus art done by the amazing Chandra Free, also known as Spooky Chan. Spooky Chan. So this chapter has bonus art. Eterna touches my shoulder and I don't turn around. I push through the drunk partygoers, drumming up more ire with every bumped shoulder. Eventually, I get up to the skull-headed knight. "Hey, you Thunderskull?" I ask. You wouldn't think a person without a face could look down at someone with disdain, but this guy manages it.
Yeah, so what?
Could you please turn the music down? I ask. I have a work thing in the morning. He throws back the rest of his beer. How he's managed the skull look while still being able to drink fluids is somewhat fascinating, to be honest. But also besides the point. Especially when he leans down to get in my face. The smell of his breath reminds me I don't like beer.
What are you going to do about it? Call the cops?
Thunderskull and his 3 companions laugh. I stare up at him until he stops laughing.
You're serious?
He asks.
You came in here in your fucking PJs to ask me to turn it down.
He mocks, and rubs his eye sockets with his free hand.
Why, I can't sleep. I have work tomorrow.
Please just turn your music down, I say.
Mute your hearing.
He barks back.
Even a T like you could do that right.
Fire spills from his hollow eye sockets. I'm sure he thinks it looks very intimidating, but he's still holding a plastic cup. I don't want to start any problems, I begin. I just want to get some sleep and be able to hear my alarm in the morning. Please, just turn it down and I'll leave.
No fucking basic bosses me around,
he says as he crushes his cup. I lose it and begin laughing, full-throated cackling. The guy's attempts to appear scary have just been hilarious as hell. I double over and clutch my knees as I laugh. Everyone stops as the loud music is temporarily drowned out by my laughter. I rein it in and quiet myself before standing back up. Thunderskull is not amused. You're fucking hilarious, dude, I say as I wipe tears from my eyes. Wow!
What?
He asks angrily. I wave my hand at him. Just turn the music down, okay? Thunderskull's flaming eyes grow brighter as he draws his fist back for a very telegraphed punch. I've already strengthened my body and decide to double it up at the last moment before his fist connects with my jaw. I hear bones cracking over the music, sharp breaks that pierce the night, and none of them are mine. I haven't moved at all and barely felt the impact. The most his attack has done to me is make my hair move a bit from the air being displaced. His fist and forearm are shattered. It takes him a moment to realize just how fucked up he is and that he's shifted back to his basic form. He's young, thin, Latino, and in too much pain to scream. Thunderskull clutches his busted arm. His companions' faces are filled with horror, but no one quite seems sure where the horror should be directed. Him or me? Does this mean you're going to turn the music down? I ask. When a party's host breaks their arm on someone's face, most parties are over, and one where many people attending have the ability to shapeshift is no exception. Folks begin to leave immediately. Paige, are you okay? Eterna asks loudly. One of the people who had been talking to Thunderskull, a thin person with deer antlers, reaches over and turns off the stereo. Thunderskull begins whimpering, the only sound besides the shuffling of partygoers leaving as quickly as they can. I don't reply to Eterna. I look down at Thunderskull, who has collapsed to the floor, clutching his broken hand and arm. His clothing is still plate armor that hangs more loosely on his body. He didn't have any armor over his arms, which is probably for the best. He'd have even more trouble if the metal had become twisted as his limb. I'd probably have to cut him out of it myself were that the case. Hopefully his buddies who haven't left yet can help it if he needs it. You gonna need help with that, or do you know how to heal it? What? He asks weakly. I squat down in front of him. Shift it so it's not broken and you'll be fine. It'll just change back, he says. You've got to be a Class A with that fire and eye thing, right? He nods. You can do this then. You can heal it. I point to his arm. It does take practice and time to make it stick, but I have seen a Class A CoL heal a pretty bad injury using their powers. Heal it. When you have to take a breather, see a doctor. And if you don't want to go... Well, heal it. When you have time... let me mess it up. Heal it. When you have to take a breather, see a doctor if you don't want to just go on healing it till it's patched up for good. It may take a few weeks or months since, wow, that is pretty fucked up. You probably should go to the hospital, to be honest. Here's the illustration. I hope y'all have been enjoying my terrible Thunderskull voice. You broke his arm, someone says in disbelief. He punched me, I reply without looking up. Thunderskull nods. I punched them, he confirms. I suppose the pain has sobered him up. His arm goes from a mangled mess to functional after a stuttering wave of a shapeshift runs down the length of it. I kind of hope he goes to the hospital. I didn't see any bones sticking through his skin before he shapeshifted, but an arm isn't supposed to look like a meat bag full of crushed ice. For what it's worth, I didn't think you'd break your arm like that, I say. Figured it would just be your hand. He looks up at me. What the fuck are you? Leaving now, I reply. I need to get up early. Eterna follows me out and down the stairs in silence. We get to our apartments before she says anything. What did you do back there, Paige? Just strengthened my body, I say. I think that was the equivalent of him punching a solid wall of tungsten or something. Thunderskull's a Class A, she breathes, then glances at me. You're a Class S, I say. Who's going to bed now? Good night, Eterna. I wake thanks to the alarm on my phone after sleeping a few hours. At least I got some rest, but still, I can't help but feel kind of shitty about letting Thunderskull break his arm on my face. I could have done a lot of things differently. Should have. Tried to calm him down instead of laughing. I'll see if he needs a lift to the hospital if he's still messed up when I get home today. I wear my best shift-ready clothing. I have a pair of prototype boots, which aren't slated to be available for purchase anytime I'm aware of, because they were incredibly expensive to make. I leave them as they are, since they look kind of neat without being altered. Like tanker boots someone might wear in a dystopian movie. My pants are a higher-end model that's newly on the market. I've had them over a year since I've I'm a beta tester. They're easy to will into other shapes, so I make them look like black slacks. My undershirt is a simple, inexpensive shift-ready one that I alter to look like a plain cream-colored button-up shirt with black tie. I shouldn't have to do anything drastic that would shred it. My underwear are the same brand as the pants, and I keep them as is, but they should survive if I have to use my powers to almost any extreme. Almost. I throw my long-sleeve shift-ready top on over everything. It's baggy and loose. I will it into a longish black jacket that matches the pants. It will never stop fascinating me how I can make one set of clothing look like whatever I want like this. Or buttons. I gather my wallet and phone and key card, which I store in the jacket's inner pocket before buttoning the front. How the fuck do I make buttons work? I text Detective Windgate that I'm on my way as I leave. He does not reply. Why is this text this color? This should not be that color. There it goes. I don't know why it was doing that. Drink a little water. Thunderskull voice made my throat hurt. The Ember Child, Chapter 6, Part 1. There have been absolutely no cases of Children of Loki below the age of 19. The initial group of people who gained powers on February 17th had a wide range of ages, but none below 19. New instances of people gaining powers, colloquially known as Embers, have consistently occurred sometime after the person turned 19. A person may be in their 30s and suddenly develop CoL abilities, but no one below the age of 19 has done so. Our current theory is that one's prefrontal cortex needs to reach a certain level of development before they can comprehend their powers. My personal hope is to one day do a series of studies involving Embers between the ages of 19 and 20. Excerpt from the Book of CoL, 2nd edition, Chapter 3, Restrictions on Age. I'm in the hotel lobby finishing off a donut I picked up, along with a small coffee to kill time when I receive a text from Detective Windgate that reads, "Okay," in reply to the previous message I sent about being on my way. I'm a bit early, but decided to go to the room he had mentioned. Maybe he's got the clients here. It's not a hotel I'd expect a rich family to be staying in. It's no Motor Inn or Fleabag Motel, but it is decidedly middle class and located directly off the highway. Prime location for traveling families. The elevator creaks a bit as it carries me up 2 floors. It's also more than a bit muggy inside the thing. One good thing about being a CoL is you don't have to sweat through your shirt if you don't want to. You just have to make sure you don't give yourself heat stroke in the process. People evolve to sweat for a reason. I make sure I'm not too sweaty when I step into the hallway and approach the door. I am a consultant to a detective, I tell myself. I am a CoL expert. Neither is a lie, unless I get fired, and then the first one is just a significant mistake. I knock on the door and hear a shuffling on the other side before a voice calls, "Who is it?" Detective Windgate? It's Paige. I know I'm a little early, but I thought I'd come up and... The door opens suddenly. He reaches out and pulls me inside before locking it behind me. I don't get any more words out for a while because the detective is vehemently remorseful. "I am so sorry, Mr. Simmons," Detective Windgate begins. "This was all a terrible misunderstanding. Please let me know which hotel you're staying at, and I'll cover your costs. You can stay here if you don't have one, and I'll arrange for a ride to take you home. Again, I am so very, very sorry about all of this." His posture is...
Turn the air conditioner on.
reading my book. Sorry about that. His posture is different than when I met him at the grocery store. Not quite as cocky. He's doing a bad job of hiding the fact that he's in a full-blown panic. It could be just because he's firing me, but it seems more significant than that. As someone who can literally look like anyone they want, I'm used to picking up on different mannerisms, and if he didn't look like the same person I had met on Friday, I would almost say he was someone else entirely. Even his speech is different. Not by a lot, but to me it's noticeable. Am I being fired? I ask. He winces, tilts his head a little, and then shrugs. Yes. Why? I ask. You still have a CoL kid to investigate, right? I can't take the case, Detective Windgate says sharply. Why not? Personal reasons, he says. I'm about to call the family and tell them I can't do it. You're going to quit over the phone? I ask. That doesn't seem very professional. It's hard to explain, but I have to. I can't handle being around a CoL like that, he says evasively. I get it. We can be scary, but still, it seems rather impersonal to quit that way. He goes pale, staring at me, takes a few steps back, nearly stumbling over the corner of the hotel room's bed. Oh, shit, I say before putting my hands in the air and backing up towards the door behind me. I am so sorry. You had no idea I'm a CoL. Shit. Here is Eugene. He turns away from me and takes another shaky step towards a window while shaking his head. I can hear him mumbling, "Nope, not right now, no." What did Dr. Hailu tell you about me? I ask. That you were an expert, he says weakly. I am, but shit. Does Hailu know you have a problem with CoLs? I should leave. He's obviously in distress, but I don't want the mystery of the 10-year-old Ember unsolved. I back up towards the door another step, hoping I don't look more menacing in the shadows for doing so. She does, but I didn't call her, he says. It's complicated. Friday, you said she referred you to me, I say. Then it clicks. But I don't say anything. Please, just go. I'm going to quit this job. I'm sorry I can't pay you. I can cover your hotel. I don't have a hotel, I say. And don't worry about paying me. I'll work the case myself. No, you absolutely will not be copying me, he erupts as he turns around. You will not! I still have my hands in the air. I never said I would. I don't like using my powers unless I absolutely have to. Just tell your client you're handing the job off to a private investigator who specializes in CoL stuff. I have a license. I can work the case on my own. I don't like the idea of you doing that over the phone, but if you need to, go for it. You don't understand, Detective Windgate says, sitting down on the far corner of the bed. I wait a moment before I speak. The silence hangs heavy between us. I understand you've got DID or something similar that's triggered by CoLs. It's a survival response because something happened. I won't pry, but it explains why your behavior's changed, you're speaking differently, and how you could call Dr. Hailu without calling Dr. Hailu. An alter hired me. He's not the first system I've heard about with CoL-related trauma, but he is the first I've met. Strangely, there haven't been any CoLs discovered with dissociative identity disorder. It doesn't mean they don't exist, but our powers would certainly make it more difficult to recognize one. He stares at me, then blinks, then looks at the television, which is still turned off. After a little while, he speaks. Starling and Lucas hired you. They co-fronted after the kid triggered me, he says. I'll pay for your ride home. It's not that far, I say. The detective stares at me again. What? I moved to Austin. Jesus Christ! He puts his face in his hands. I was planning to move anyway, I say. I literally had all of my stuff in boxes and my lease expiring in a couple weeks. Detective Windgate sits silently for a few moments, just staring at the television. He runs his fingers through his hair and looks at his hand with a bit of disgust. I don't like this shit Starling uses, he says. Hair wax? I ask. Or something else? It's wax, he shakes his head. Smells like oranges. You're right, I can't quit over the phone. If you've really got a PI license, then I'll hand the job off to you. We'll go in person, just please don't use your powers. That won't be a problem, I say. For what it's worth, it's nice to meet you, Detective Windgate. Or is that just Starling? We're all Detective Windgate, he says as he gets to his feet. He walks up to me and puts out a hand. My name's Eugene Windgate. I'm the host. Our system is me, Starling, and Lucas. I shake his hand. It's nice to meet y'all. I'm Page Simmons. Chapter 6, Part 2. Eugene insists I ride with him in his sedan. To my surprise, the car isn't an old surplus police cruiser, but a small white hybrid hatchback with a solar panel-coated roof and chipped paint on one door that has at some point been damaged. The dent has been roughly popped back out, but the paint in that area is flaking off to reveal some rust on the door panel. I can just meet you there, I say. No using your powers. I wouldn't. I was going to get a taxi, I explain. Just get in the car, please, Eugene says firmly. Will you be okay? I ask. To be honest, I'm more than a bit worried about him driving while upset. Would my being in the car cause him to dissociate? Is my worrying about me possibly triggering him, me being patronizing? I'll be fine, he says, then motions to the passenger seat. You look normal enough, just don't return to your basic form in the car or near me. This is my basic form, I say. He lets out a sigh. Then get in the car. We drive in silence with the radio turned off. Eugene keeps his eyes on the traffic and seems to drive without a problem. Once he passes the job over to me, he can go home and not have to worry about this anymore. I sit up straight in my chair and look out the passenger side window to get an idea of where we're going. The highway takes us to the north side of town. Then we reach a gated community full of mini mansions. Eugene buzzes in at the intercom. It's Windgate for the Wims family, he says. I don't catch what the person on the intercom says, but there's a mechanical buzz before the large gate blocking our path rolls out of the way. The road through the gated community winds quite a ways. There's a golf course in the area with homes wedged in and out of it like knots on a tree. We pause a few times to let golf carts cross the street. Eventually, we reach a 3-story house faced with rough limestone. Eugene parks in front of the 4-car garage in the driveway. He turns to look at me for the first time since the hotel and takes in a deep, calming breath before letting it back out. I'm trusting you aren't lying about the PI license, he begins. But I won't ask to see it because I know it will have information about you on it. I understand, I say. Good, he says with a nod. He holds up a finger. Don't use your powers. Follow my lead. I nod again. Not a problem at all. Very good, he says with another sigh. He opens his car door. Let's go, Detective Simmons. I follow him to the front door. The lawn is well maintained, bright green, short grass that probably uses a lot of water. There's a small ash tree in the front yard near the sidewalk that leads to the concrete driveway. It reminds me of a friend. When Starling mentioned the family was rich, I was expecting something more grand than this. Maybe a butler and a maid? Eugene rings the doorbell. A moment later, the door opens, and an older gentleman in a tuxedo answers it. Ah, yes, the detective, he says. Right this way, sir. Okay, I guess they do have a butler. The butler leads Eugene and I through a small foyer. My boots sound heavy against the white marble floors. We enter a sitting room that reminds me of something from a period drama set in Victorian England. There's no television, but an old-style Victrola sits in the corner with a curved horn on top to serve as an amplifier. I wonder if the thing is vintage or even functions. Who the hell lives like this? Please wait here. I will retrieve the master of the house, the butler says, before turning to leave the room. Eugene seems a bit tense. He remains standing and pushes his coat back enough to shove a thumb into each front pocket of his slacks. I look around the room a bit more. There's a pretty large decorative end table that has a space built into it for a dog to sleep in. A few dog toys have been tossed in it. The cushion is covered in gray and white fur that is noticeably absent from the uncomfortable-looking sofa in the center of the room. Bookshelves and display cabinets line the walls of the room. One cabinet that stands next to a large bay window is tall with curved glass and filled with old photos of oil rigs. Some of the photos are ancient tintypes, while others look more recent. This family may be from old oil money, and this probably isn't their only house. The door opens again, loudly, as the master of the house enters. A tall white man with flaxen blonde hair that's been combed over. He's in his early 40s, thin, save for his gut, which is a little round. His skin is pale and smooth. He may be from oil money, but he hasn't spent much time on a rig, unless he actually used sunscreen. Behind him is a woman with similarly colored hair and skin. She's not as tall, and looks to be at least 10 years younger. I'd think she was his daughter if not for the matching wedding bands on each of their ring fingers. "Detective Windgate," the man says, ignoring me. He practically forces Eugene to shake his hand and barely lets him get a word in edgewise. It's good to see you. We've been looking forward to hearing back from you. How have you been? Any breakthroughs?" "About that," Eugene begins. "My son has been more withdrawn than last time," the man says. "I'm afraid he's having trouble processing what he's become. But we've been hesitant to take him anywhere to get another opinion. The leading expert in Children of Loki is apparently busy with some dreadfully important tests or study or something." Who the fuck uses dreadfully like that nowadays? I wonder to myself. Dude talks like some stuffy Victorian without a British accent. Is this guy always like this? "Yes, well, Mr. Williams, about that," Eugene begins. "Patrick!" Mr. Williams calls. "Patrick, come in here!" "No, that's all right," Eugene says loudly. I step forward and make sure Mr. Williams can see me. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Williams. I'm Detective Page Simmons." He glances down at me and then calls again. "Patrick!" "Mr. Williams," Eugene begins again, "Detective Simmons is here because they are an expert on CoLs who has worked with Dr. Hailu." Mr. Williams finally looks at me as though I'm actually standing in the room, which I am. "You've worked with Dr. Hailu? Why would she need a detective?" "I'm a lot of things," I say. "I've worked with her in other capacities." "Like what?" "Unfortunately, a confidentiality agreement prevents me from going into detail," I explain. "It is true, but only for some portions of some studies, not everything in general. I'm mostly worried about potentially causing Eugene trouble right now, so I'm trying to keep things vague. But rest assured, I am an expert in cold cases." Mr. Williams narrows his eyes and looks down at me before turning back to Eugene. "Where did you find this woman?" "Detective Simmons was referred to me by Dr. Hailu herself," Eugene says. "They are an expert." "She looks like a kid," Mr. Williams says. I really don't look that young, I think to myself. Eugene is about to say something else, possibly in response to Mr. Williams insisting on using feminine pronouns for myself, so I interrupt him this time. "She, he, they, any and all pronouns are fine by me," I say with a smile. "I have my identification if you'd like to look it over." "That can be faked, and I'm certainly not calling you he," Mr. Williams says with a scoff before shouting again, "Patrick, get in here!" There's a thud in another part of the house before the sound of footsteps coming downstairs. I track the noise through the house as it draws closer. "Mr. Williams," Eugene begins, "unfortunately I won't be able to." The door pops open, and a 10-year-old boy with a human-sized crab claw for a left hand and arm bursts in. "I'm here, Papa!"
"Jeez!"
Eugene shouts with a wince and ducks. I step between him and the kid with my hands up as the child continues to approach, waving his claw gleefully. "Settle down." "Make me," the kid says angrily. "Now, Patrick, we spoke about this," Mr. Williams says. "That is no way to greet guests." The kid sticks his tongue out at me. I shake my head and turn to see Detective Windgate standing tall behind me, his hair a bit more slicked back than before. "You okay, Detective Windgate?" I ask. He nods confidently. "Fine, safe, no problems here." Shit, he didn't get to quit the job. "If you're such an expert," Mr. Williams begins, while crossing his arms, his words are biting, "then explain to us how our 10-year-old son has become a child of Loki." I don't look at the kid. Instead, I look at Starling. "What happened last time you were here, when you met the kid and before you left?" He smirks and waves at the child, who has now transformed his crab claw into several long purple octopus tentacles that flop around from his long-sleeve shirt cuff. Patrick did something like that after his parents demanded he show off his powers. I took the job and left." "That's it?" "Why are you asking him questions?" Mr. Williams asks. I ignore him. Patrick jumps up on the seat of the couch, waving his octo arm around more while making rocket noises. Here's Patrick with his octo arm.
Wow.
"Mrs. Williams, has Patrick always been this rambunctious?" I ask. It takes her a moment to overcome her shock that I've addressed her before she answers. "No, he hasn't been this naughty before. He used to want me to read to him at night and play with Pino. That was our dog. I thought it was because Pino was missing or because of the change." Patrick hops off the couch and waves his tentacles at Detective Windgate, who stares down at him impassively, before the kid moves on to try to scare me with his weird limb. He jumps a little when I just squat down to be eye level with him. I know I told Eugene I wouldn't use my powers, but I strengthen my body just in case. It won't be visible, and he's already got Starling driving, so maybe it'll work out if I have to use them for anything. "What kind of dog was Pino?" I ask. "Pino's gone," Patrick says while smacking me in the face with the fleshy tentacles. "What breed was Pino? What color was Pino?" "What does it matter?" Mr. Williams asks angrily. "You're supposed to be an expert in CoLs, and all you're doing is asking my son what color our dog is." I keep my eyes fixed on the kid, who's still batting me in the face with his shapeshifted hand. He's trying his hardest to be as annoying and weird as possible. "Because this isn't your son." And that ends Book of CoL, the Ember Child, Chapter 6. If you have enjoyed listening to Book of CoL, the Ember Child, Chapters 5 and 6, please like and subscribe here on YouTube. And you can also read Book of CoL, the Ember Child, in its entirety on Tapas for free. Thank you. Please enjoy this animation I've been making of Thunderskull meeting Einar from I Didn't Ask to Marry You, male lead, by AKG on Tapas.